Welcome to the Questioning Our Perspective podcast, where questioning our thoughts helps you to discover the tools to change your perspective and change your life. I'm your host, Aaron Matthews, and I'm thrilled to launch this podcast as a space to explore how challenging assumptions can really unlock new strategies for us, streamlining operations, driving impact, and intricate challenges within our businesses and our lives. Today is my inaugural episode. We're diving deep into the world of business and life with the topic of turning chaos into organization. Chaos, or complexity as we'll refer to it, whether from intricate systems, conflicting priorities, resistant stakeholders, or tight deadlines, can feel daunting, but it's an opportunity waiting to be harnessed. With over 2 decades of experience in leading large, complex projects across healthcare, IT, insurance, and AI, I share the strategies I've used to help resolve complexity or turn chaos into order and then help deliver value. I'll be drawing on real-world examples from my career and industry examples that will allow us to see things in a different way. You'll gain actionable tools to enhance your leadership, optimize your projects, and inspire your teams, while I connect these ideas to my work at Value Alignment Consulting, where we help organizations resolve complexity for transformative results. Let's start by understanding chaos or complexity. It often emerges in professional settings from these interconnected systems or outdated processes. Sometimes it's misaligned goals. Challenges I've faced repeatedly throughout my career. If you're like me, I didn't deal well with them at first. I would get overwhelmed. I would lose track of things. I would not write things down, and I would end up just not performing great. It's been a long road in learning, so help me help you to get there faster. See if this sounds familiar to you. Psychologically, complexity or chaos can trigger stress or what we call decision paralysis. But cognitive psychology offers a powerful framework for reframing it. Barbara Fredrickson's Broaden and Build theory, published in 2001, demonstrates that positive emotions expand awareness, encourage novel and creative problem solving, and enable connections in complex situations to be seen. So let's shift our perspective a little bit. So looking at the reverse of that, how might this show up for you and I at work? I'm looking at it from the opposite side. Might see negative emotions that would decrease our awareness, discourage novel thinking or creative problem solving, and generally make complex situations seem more confusing and more daunting. And if you were like I have been at times, I would kind of shut down and not know how to even proceed forward. Now, I'll be the first to admit every complex situation is still overwhelming at first. You have to have a way to tackle it. What I like to refer to is you have to put it in a mental model. And if you don't have that, it's hard to even know how to proceed. And so some of what I'll be sharing with you are mental models in ways that we can think differently about things, not just, like I said, in business, but in life. To break this down so it can be handled, there's a strategy that I call slaying the beast. And it has 2 parts. First is you have to name the beast, and then you have to slay the beast. Now, there's a couple additional parts that we'll discuss in later episodes about learning from the beast and teaching others to slay the beast, but that's for another time. We're going to take it slow now, baby steps. So let's first discuss naming the beast. Let's take a large project as an example, but you can think of anything that may be overwhelming in your life and apply this to it. First of all, naming the beast is clarifying. So for me, as a project manager in multiple industries, I first come in and I look at, well, what's the goal? What is the goal of what we're actually trying to do? Is there a problem we're trying to solve? What's the value that we're really trying to get out of this? In project management speak, we often call that scope, which should be contained in a project charter or some other document, page, or slide that says, here's what we're doing and why we're doing it. So you really have to define the problem. And I find oftentimes defining that problem, defining that scope is not done nearly as carefully as we need to. So we first have to define what is that true north. So for me, this comes in an example that I've had in my life is I had a large healthcare IT project where we were delivering a solution to multiple emergency departments across the US. Now, this was scoped for one solution for these different emergency departments. And this was an emergency department charge assist project. So basically how they capture charges. It faced resistance from stakeholders. We just had this group that was at another hospital that just was always kind of pushing against it. And I'd stepped in after the contract had been signed, after it had kind of been scoped from the company. And I was trying to figure out why there was so much resistance, why it seemed like this project just couldn't get off the ground, couldn't get moving. It was just kind of chaos. So the first thing I did was sat down and I said, okay, well, what are we trying to do? And then I looked at, well, who are we trying to do this to or with? And so those are what we consider the stakeholders. Sat down, talked to these stakeholders to understand their concerns. And lo and behold, one of the EDs that we were dealing with, this solution really didn't seem to make sense. And so I started asking around, well, why are we doing it this way instead of this other way that it could be done? And we came to find out that it had just been scoped wrong. What we ended up doing is we ended up pausing the project, going back to square one and rescoping. We actually split it out into two separate projects. And this was vitally important because so often you'll just cram in a project and say, no, we just need to get it done. But we had to hold back and actually restart. And by doing that, it made all of the difference. Suddenly we had two projects. One that was this originally scoped project that we went forth and it ended up with 31% increase in ED revenue from what we were able to accomplish. Well, this other project that we ended up scoping ended up seeing not just a 31%, but a 33% increase in ED revenue capture. So this ended up showing me that, sometimes you really have to go back and you have to relook at all of your assumptions. And you may think it's huge and ugly and it's not moving right and it's chaotic, but you have to name the beast. You have to make sure you have the right name for the beast. And once you do that, suddenly you will find clarity. And I have to tell you, that can be really tough because sometimes you're pushing against some very big waves, but it will make all the difference. So let's discuss the second part of this, and that is slaying the beast. Now, this is simply as it puts. How do you slay the beast? Well, it's like the old adage, how do you move a mountain? Well, one shovelful at a time. And if you look at it that way, you have to break down this beast. Once you've named it, and you have the right thing that you're trying to do, you then have to look at it and say, well, how can I break this down into logical, structured components? In the project management field, we call this planning. It doesn't necessarily matter how you initially structure it, depending on the size. I find the bigger the project or program, oftentimes it's hard to even get started. And so I find that it doesn't really matter how I structure it, just that I get something down. Because if you have the right people involved and you continue to kind of tap away at it, you'll start to find things that align, ways that it should be structured, and just be willing to change that structure as you move along. Oftentimes you can break down these components by teams or by work phases, by milestones. It's whatever makes sense. And if no way makes sense, like I said, just get started and be willing to change as you move along. You might ask yourself, what if I just get overwhelmed by so much going on? What if I just don't understand it at all? Modern psychology can teach us how we can think that can impact our ability to name and slay the beast. There's a quote in a book by Seligman called Flourish, A Visionary New Understanding of Happiness and Well-Being. And he talks about this. He says, when people face these daunting tasks, whether it's a personal crisis or a professional quagmire, think chaotic project or program, they often freeze. The sheer size of the challenges obscures the starting point. And this is where positive psychology shifts this by focusing on what's already working, your strengths. These are tools you bring to the table, even when the table's a mess. Using your signature strengths in a new way can turn chaos into order. When you identify what you're good at, say perseverance or teamwork or strategic thinking, and apply it deliberately, the overwhelming becomes approachable. Break the task into steps, lean on what you do best, and suddenly the impossible has a shape you can work with. It's not chaos anymore, it's a project. This isn't wishful thinking. It's backed by data. In studies of workplace performance, people who use their strengths daily reported higher engagement and lower stress, even under pressure. The trick is awareness. Name your strengths, then deploy them. That's how you build well-being while getting things done. So in business, as well as in life, we have to understand our strengths. And if you don't understand your strengths, there are lots of tools available. Strengths Finder is one. There are many, many other tools that can help you discover what are you good at? What are you passionate about? Who are you innately that you can double down on and bring to the table? These are just a few examples of how you can deal with this chaos, how you might be able to take and turn something around, turn a mountain into a molehill, or as I like to say, name the beast and slay the beast. I know as you look at these things, as you look at how you can break down these large stressors, these chaotic things in your life into smaller, manageable parts, that will make all the difference to you being able to deliver value. And it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter whether it's in your private life or anywhere. I've applied these steps into countless projects, identifying the connections, aligning teams, and driving order. And that is exactly what I do. I'm fortunate to have looked at these, what I thought were weaknesses, and turned them around, questioned my own perspective to say, man, I have a tough time with this, but how can I turn this into a strength? As you do the same thing and question your perspective, you'll start to find those things that will turn into your strengths. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, comment below. My name is Aaron Matthews. This has been Questioning Our Perspective podcast. Join me next time where we'll continue talking about project program management, life, and how we can turn chaos into order. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful day.